Hello everyone, my name is Curtis. Today I'm going to do a review for Beyond the Gates, episode 201. The episode begins with Ted walking up to Shanice, asking her if she has a minute to talk. She asks him if this has anything to do with the kiss that they shared on New Year's Eve. He says no, it doesn't have anything to do with that. But then he's like, well, since we are having a conversation about the kiss, I personally felt like the kiss went really well, especially for her first kiss. And she's like, I felt like it went well as well. And then she's like, but is there something wrong? He was like, well, there's nothing wrong with me, but there is something wrong with somebody that I truly love and care about. So she was like, okay, I did see Nicole coming out of your office a little bit earlier. Does that have anything to do with her? And he's like, yes. And then he says, I need some advice. And she did look pretty concerned. We head over to the bar and we see Kat. She's trying to get the bartender's attention, but he does not respond, so she calls out to him again. He turns around, she says that she wants some tequila. He's like, you know what, I got you. And then we see Tomas, he comes into the bar and he walks up to Kat. And she's like, wait a minute, bartender, can you actually get two tequilas, one for me and one for Tomas? And Tomas was like, well, actually, I'll get some water opposed to tequila. And so when it comes to Kat, she's like, wait a minute, are you going to make me drink alone, like drink by myself? He's like, well, first of all, I'm not making you do anything. Then he says, when it comes to you, you sent me a text message. You told me to come by. I'm here, so what's going on? And then she's like, are you patronizing me? He was like, no, I'm not patronizing you. It's just a situation where I wasn't expecting to drink during working hours. Kat was just like, I guess you do not want to go into the office around like liquor, huh? He was like, well, number one, it is a little uncommon for an employee to go into their office smelling like liquor. That's number one. And then number two, I do need to have sober brain cells in order to get my job done. And so she's like, you know what? Why don't you just leave? Like, I'm sorry for bothering you. Just go to the office. I know you want to make partner and all of that, right? I know that's super important to you. So he's like, listen, becoming a partner is very important to me, but not as important as you. So why don't you just tell me what's going on? And this is when she lets him know that her grandmother has breast cancer. In the next scene, we see Smitty. Smitty is getting ready to head out, but he stops once the door opens, and it turns out to be Martin. He's like, what are you doing here? I thought that you were going to Belfast. Martin tells him that he canceled. Smitty's like, wait, what do you mean you canceled? You've been talking about this event for weeks, and then also when it comes to you and Shonda, you have been working on visibility for the re-election. Like, how can you cancel? He was like, well, something important came up. He was like, what's more important than getting re-elected? He was like, family. After this, we see Danny and Bill. They go over to Anita and Vernon's house. Danny asks Vernon if Anita is awake. He says yes, so they do go into the living room area. And this is where Bill tells Anita that he is sorry to hear about everything that's happening when it comes to her breast cancer diagnosis. Danny tells Anita that she heard that Naomi and Chelsea came over a little bit earlier. And then she says that she is sorry that she did not give them the news earlier. Anita says, it's okay, it's fine. They actually took the news fairly well. And then she says that she wishes that there was a better way to tell everyone that she has a monster living inside of her. And then she says, this monster could be passed out to other people, and she feels really bad about that. Going back to Shanice and Ted, Shanice tells Ted that she does not believe that she'll be the best person to give advice when it comes to him and Nicole. He says, listen, I do not need personal advice, I actually need medical advice. She was like, okay, but what's going on? He says, you know what, I feel like we need to go to a different area to talk about this so nobody else can hear it. So she's like, okay, cool. And then they go to another area. Once they get to the other area, Ted lets her know that Nicole's mom, which is Anita, does have breast cancer, and it is an aggressive form of breast cancer because it's a variant of the BRCA gene. And he says this means that Nicole may have it. So then Shanice was like, oh shit, so that means that your kids may have it too, huh? He was like, unfortunately, yes. Then he says, in this situation, when it comes to the kids, when it comes to the family, I really want to be there for all of them, but I'm not really sure how to go about it because, I'm in a divorce. So I'm not really sure if I'm overstepping, like how am I supposed to go about this? And then he says that normally he reaches out to Carlton and kind of sort things out, but unfortunately in this situation that is no longer the case. Shanice tells him that regardless of if he is married or if he is divorced, it really doesn't matter. Those are his kids. That's still his family. So therefore, he still has to say so as far as what goes on in their lives. Back at the bar, Tomas tells Kat that he is sorry to hear about everything that's going on with Anita. She tells him that this is honestly the hardest thing that she has had to deal with in her entire life. He was like, you know what, I can only imagine. Then he says, can you do me a favor? She was like, what? He actually slides over a glass of water. Remember, he ordered her water a little bit earlier. He was like, can you please drink this instead of the tequila? She's like, you know what? I will. He then tells her that she probably has a million things going on in her mind right now. She was like, yes. She was like, to be honest, she can't even contemplate the idea of her grandmother being sick because in her mind, she's the strongest woman in the world. She's invincible. And then she says, when it comes to her and the rest of the family, they wouldn't be who they are right now if it wasn't for her. He tells her that all of that power and all of that focus is what's going to help her get through this. And then she says, when it comes to Anita, she is pretty much the heart and soul of the family. So therefore, she doesn't know what she would do if she loses her. Back with Danny, Bill, Anita, and Vernon, Danny lets them know she had a conversation with their girls about getting tested for the variant, and you know what, they're on board. Vernon says, you know what, he's not surprised to hear that, and then Anita says she had a conversation with them to explain the risks. Bill tells Anita that the person that matters the most right now is her, and then he says, you know, when it comes to the girls, they understand what's most important, which is the same as me and Danny. And when he said that, this caused Vernon to look very concerned, very worried. He was like, you know, with all of this deep conversation, I'm a little parched. Danny, can you help me go get some lemonade? Danny was like, sure. So Danny and Vernon, they do get up, they leave the living room area and go into the foyer. And then Danny actually saw something. She was like, wait, before we actually go get lemonade, I want to apologize again about not telling Chelsea and Naomi a little bit earlier. He was like, you know what, that's absolutely fine. That's okay. When it comes to my concern and when it comes to your mother's concern, we're actually concerned about the fact that you brought Bill over. Danny tells Vernon that he is reading too much into this. She says that both her and Bill had a conversation with Chelsea and Naomi, and then they decided to come over because Bill wanted to express his sympathy to Anita in person. Vernon was just like, Back in the living room, Anita and Bill start to have a conversation. Anita tells Bill that she has seen him more recently than she did when he and Danny were married. He was like, you know, I feel like that's a bit of an exaggeration, but I do feel like me and Danny have been in each other's orbit a lot lately. And then she says, you know, when it comes to your presence, it was strong and it was welcome during Danny's crisis. Bill tells her that he hates the fact that the family is going through another crisis, and then he says that, you know, when he saw her at the hospital, he had no idea that she was going through the things that she was going through. He says, you know what, I did not know either at that time. She tells him that life comes at you fast. He was like, tell me about it, like I recently had a stroke. And she was like, look at you. He was like, yeah, I'm all recovered, and you know what, I have no doubt that you would do the same. And then he says that, you know what, I have some advice that I want to give you about your upcoming journey. Back with Martin and Smitty, Smitty tells Martin that he cannot believe that Anita is going through the things that she is going through in regards to cancer, because in his mind, she has always been invincible. Martin tells him that he has been clinging on to that to give him a reason to be positive throughout all of this. And then he tells Smitty that the cancer that she has is very aggressive, it's something that is recurrent, and that she has a long road ahead of her. And then he says, you know what, that's okay because she's not going to be on that road alone. Martin tells him that everybody's going to get tested just to see if they have this variant. Smitty tells him that he wishes that he was there with them once he received the news. He says, you know, I wish you were there as well. And then Smitty inquires about Kat. He's like, you know what, how is she doing? Martin says, you know what, she is devastated, but then he says that he wishes Kat will focus more on herself. Back at the bar, Kat tells Tomas that she has a love-hate relationship with tequila, and she is not looking forward to see how much tequila hates her when she wakes up in the morning. And then he says, you know what, if I would have gotten news like this about my grandmother, I probably would have had a drink or two as well. He asks Kat what else did the doctor say. She says, well, the doctor said that they're pretty much going to fast-pace everything based off of the type of cancer that she has. So when it comes to chemo, when it comes to surgery, it's going to get done as soon as possible. Tomas tells her that he is pretty sure that Anita and Vernon are using all of their connections to make sure that she has the best possible care. As the two of them are talking, her phone starts to vibrate. She looks at her phone and sees that it's Ted, and so she ignores the call. And so when it comes to Tomas, he's like, why are you ignoring his call? He may have some news. She's like, listen, I've been drinking, tequila to be specific, and so I'm not really in the mood to have a conversation. Like I may say something that I shouldn't say. And so he was like, you know what, I feel like you need to put some distance between you and the tequila. Why don't you let me take you home? She's like, you know what, that's fine. And long story short, he does take her home. She apologizes for being mean, and then she tells him to go back to work, which he does. Back with Shanice and Ted, Shanice asks Ted if he had any luck reaching out to the family. He says that he tried to reach out to Kat, but unfortunately she did not pick up. And so Shanice was like, that's interesting because I know that she's normally glued to the phone, but you know what? Maybe she just put it down for a moment. She'll give you a call back. And he's like, you know what? That is possible, but it is highly unlikely. Shanice tells him that she's probably nervous, very anxious about everything that's going on. And then also she's probably concerned about her possibly having the gene. Ted tells Shanice that Kat told Nicole that she does not want to get tested. Shanice asks why. He says because she does not want to know the worst because there isn't anything that she can do to change it. Shanice says that she needs to get tested because depending on the type of BRCA mutation, there is a 45 to 70% chance that the person can test positive. Ted tells Shanice that he does not know what he's going to do if both Kat and Martin test positive for the variant. She says, you know, I do not think about it. And then he's like, you know, when it comes to Nicole, she actually came over because she wants me to reach out to Kat to try to change her mind. But he personally feels like it's been kind of weird between them ever since he's been involved with Eva. He tells her that he's not even sure where to start when it comes to a conversation. She's like, you know what, you were selling yourself short. And he says, you know, when you see Kat in person, I'm pretty sure the words are going to flow out of your mouth and everything's going to be good. Back with Smitty and Martin, Smitty tells Martin that he never thought that Kat would be the person that would be afraid to face facts. Martin says, he didn't expect it as well, but when it comes to this particular circumstance, he's not necessarily surprised. Smitty asks him if he had spoken to Kat about getting tested. He says, he did, but his mom told him to kind of back away, give her space, give her time, and let her make the decision on her own. And then he says, when it comes to the test in general, if his mom does test negative, then that pretty much excludes her anyways. Smitty asked Martin if that means that he would be excluded as well in regards to his mother testing negative. He was like, yes. Then he says, my focus right now is going to be on my mom and my grandmother. Smitty says that his focus is going to be on him, and then the two of them kiss. Smitty then tells him that he did research for financing cancer research centers back in the day, and he actually developed a contact at MD Anderson, and it's a doctor in Texas, which is the largest cancer center in the world. Martin asked him if he still has a contact. He was like, of course, I always keep track of my contacts. And he's like, listen, if you need something, if your family needs something, just let me know. I'll get in contact with that person. He was like, yes, can you please get in contact with that person so that way they can help not only me, not only help Kat, but also, of course, help my mom and my grandmother. Back with Bill and Anita, Bill tells Anita that when he had a stroke, he felt something that was very uncommon for him, which is helplessness. He says that he's pretty sure that she felt the same exact way when she received her diagnosis. And then he says, when it comes to the stroke, it caught him completely off guard because he thought that he was living his life the way that he was supposed to, but his body still failed him. He tells her that he became frustrated thinking about the fact that he lost control, and he became even more frustrated when he realized that he would have to rely on other people. And he says when it comes to relying on other people, that's almost worse than actually having a stroke. And he says that he knows Anita well enough to know that she's feeling the same way. She doesn't want to have to rely on other people, but unfortunately in this particular situation, she doesn't have a choice. He goes on to say that the thought of being vulnerable, the thought of being the one who needs something instead of being the person that gives something must be frustrating for her. But he says that his advice is this: drop the concerns and let people help you. We go to the foyer and we see that Danny and Vernon are still having a conversation. Danny tells her that he doesn't have to worry about her and Bill getting back together. He says that he expected her to lean on her new husband opposed to leaning on her ex-husband. She tells him that she does have plans to lean on Andre, but right now, Chelsea and Naomi need to see their parents together, and that's pretty much it. He was just like, okay, if you say so. She's like, yes, that is what I said. Now let's go and get the lemonade before Anita and Bill realize that you lied about being thirsty. Back with Kat, she goes to her door and she notices that her father is sitting outside, so of course she does open the door, let him inside. And he says, I do apologize for showing up unannounced, but she did not answer the phone. She says that she did not answer the phone because she was with Tomas. And he says, I guess that's a good enough reason that's the only reason why you sent me the voicemail and didn't answer the phone. She tells him that she saw him calling, but she decided to ignore it because she felt like she already knew what the conversation was going to be about. Then she asks him if her mom gave him a rundown as far as what everything is going on with Anita. He says yes, then he gives her a hug and says, I'm so sorry to hear about what's going on with your grandmother. She tells him that she was barely able to process the words that were coming out of her mom's mouth when she saw the news. He tells her that he was barely able to understand them either, but then he says that, her mom told him that there were some concerns that she had. So she was like, oh my God, so what, you came over here to try to convince me to take the test? He was like, actually, no, not even close. In the next scene, we see Tomas. He goes into the office where he's greeted by Haley. He asks if Bill is there because he's been out for a while and he just wants to check in. She tells him in a very childlike manner that he is not the only person that's been out of the office for a while. So he asks her if everything is okay. She tells him that it seems like everyone in the office has something more important to do than work. He says, well, it is New Year's. She says, yes, except for the people planning 2026. And then she brings up Pauline and insinuates that she is going to get the partner position over him. In the next scene, we see Bill, we see Vernon, we see Anita, we see Danny. They're standing in the foyer. Bill tells Danny that he will reach out to her once he has a conversation with the girl. She said, okay, cool. Then he looks over at Vernon. He's like, it was nice to see you. He looks over at Anita and says, please take my advice. Gives her a hug, and then he leaves. Anita tells Vernon that she is feeling tired, so she's going to go upstairs and lie down. He says, I'm going to come with you. Then he tells Danny that she can let herself out. But it's like, before you go upstairs, Dad, let me have a conversation with you. So Anita's like, after you finish your conversation, just come up. And so when it comes to Vernon, he's like, okay, cool. Did he ask Danny, what do you want? She tells him that she wants to have a conversation with him to see how he is doing. We go back to Ted and Kat, and so Ted tells Kat that he hopes that her mom tests negative for the variant, but he does say, there's a chance that she may test positive, and in that case, Kat has to make a choice. Kat tells him that she has already made her choice. He says, I do understand that, and I'm going to support you regardless. Then he says, the idea of you possibly having that is frightening me, so I can only imagine what you were going through. He then tells her that she can always come down to talk. It doesn't have to be about this situation, it can be about anything because he will always provide a safe space for it. And then she says that she used to tell him everything and that she misses when she was able to do that. And he says that he misses that as well. And then he tells her that while he is sure that she would like to confide in somebody her age, he is always going to be there for her. She gives him a hug and then tells him that she will always need her father. And then he says, you know what, you always be my princess, and I can't lie, I dropped a thug tear. Back with Smitty and Martin, Smitty asks Martin how's Vernon doing. He says when it comes to Vernon, on the outside everything seems good, but on the inside he feels like something is off. And then he says, when it comes to Vernon, he is currently putting on his brave face instead of being vulnerable and showing emotions. Smitty says, well, Vernon is dealing with the possibility they may lose the person he loves the most. And then Martin says, I do understand it, but I feel like in this moment he should be able to lean on me. So Smitty says, you know what, why don't you continue trying to focus on Vernon and I'll focus on you. Back at the office, Bill does finally arrive and he does go to Tomas. He's like, hey, were you looking for me? He was like, yeah, I stepped out a little bit earlier to handle some personal business, so I just wanted to check in and let you know. And he was like, yeah, I'm pretty sure your personal business was similar to my personal business. And then he asked Tomas how his cat doing. He says, Cat is terrified. And he's like, I can definitely understand that because I told my girls they're shaking up as well, as far as the possibility of having the BRCA variant. Bill then goes into his main office where he sees Haley, and she's visibly upset. And so she's like, how is Danny? He was like, listen, when I left the house, I told you that I needed to meet with her to discuss something very important. She was like, yeah, but you did not tell me what you were discussing. He was like, well, I didn't tell you because I didn't know all of the information. If I knew all the information, I would have told you, but just know it has something to do with my daughters. She walked closer to him. I guess she was trying to be sexy. And she was like, well, what about the baby that you said that you wanted to make with me? He was like, please do not try to make this a competition. Then he was like, once I tell you what's going on, you will know that you will never have to worry about Danny again. And speaking of Danny, we see that she and Vernon are having a conversation, and she tells him that he can put his guard down, his shield down, and he can be vulnerable now that Anita is upstairs. He was like, what shield are you talking about? She was like, the one that you used to protect us. He was like, you were acting like I have a letter on my chest and a cape on my back like I'm a superhero. And she says that, listen, not all superheroes wear capes. She then says that he will always be her hero, but she feels like he will be even more of a hero if he let his guard down, be vulnerable, and let everybody know how he is feeling. She tells him that she knows that he is used to fixing things, but unfortunately there's a limit to what he can and cannot fix. He was like, don't you think I know that? She tells him that no one has been stronger for Anita than him, and then she says that he is currently holding on so tight that he is on the verge of breaking. And then she says that she knows that he is going to continue doing the same thing because he believes that that's his job, that's what he's supposed to do. But then she says that him bottling up his emotions is not going to help him or anyone in the family. She then says that she knows that she is his baby girl, but in this moment she feels that she is strong enough to be a shoulder to lean on, so she wants him to lean on her in this moment. There are a couple of quick scenes after this, so I'm just going to group them together to make it easier to talk about. So in the first scene, Ted does go over to Martin's place to let him know that Kat is not currently on board with getting tested, but he feels like she's going to come around eventually. In the second scene, Tomas calls Kat to check on her. She doesn't really want to talk to him in that moment, so she makes up an excuse and then she actually hangs up on him. It's kind of rude, by the way. In the third scene, Bill tells Haley that Anita has breast cancer. She apologizes for being rude and for being petty. And in the last scene, Vernon does become vulnerable. He breaks down at the thought of losing Anita. And that was the end of the episode. Thank you all so much for watching. Really do appreciate it. If you could, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. That would be great. Hope you all have a great rest of your day. Take care.